Hey guys, in this video we're going to see the basics of the Pandas library. This library is very useful when it comes to machine learning, and it's mostly used for data analysis or data pre-processing. Every time you have some machine learning or deep learning task, you most likely have some data, and this data must be loaded into your computer's memory, and you have to do probably some pre-processing and some augmentation of the data, or maybe try to remove or add some columns, add some rows or whatever. So in this video I'm going to show you the most practical and probably the most simple operations that you can do in Pandas. Okay, so the Pandas is a really powerful library, and one of the probably the most important concept in Pandas is the data frame, and the data frame is just a container of your data. So I'm going to show you how you can use a CSV file loaded into a Pandas data frame, and we are going to start from there. For the purposes of this video, we're going to use a real world data, and this data is coming from the New York City Airbnb open data dataset that is provided at Kaggle. I've already downloaded the CSV file for this one, and I'm going to just use Google Co-op and load the data. Okay, let's start with opening Google Co-op. This is a new notebook, and as you can see, it's empty. So the first thing that I'm going to do is to change the runtime type, and we're going to use Python 3. Save that. We don't need any GPU for this tutorial, and I'm going to toggle the header visibility so we have a bit more space. Let me even zoom into this a bit further. Okay, so now that we have this notebook, the first thing that I'm going to do is to update the Pandas library, because Google Co-op doesn't have the latest version. And the notebook is connecting, and we are running the update. The latest version of Pandas as of this tutorial is 1.01. So the runtime is telling us that we must restart the runtime. So this is what we are doing. Okay, so the next thing that I'm going to do is to download the CSV file that I've already used. And I'm going to use gdown for that. You will be able to do the same thing as well. And let me just check. Yeah, here we have this CSV file that is the same from Kaggle in here. Okay, so the next thing that I'm going to do is to import the Pandas library, and I'm going to import the Seaborn library, because we are going to use Pandas for some data visualization later on, and Seaborn adds some nice defaults to the visualizations. Okay, so Pandas is in the Pandas package, and as you can see, even Google Co-op has a convention that when you're importing Pandas, you import it as PD. So I'll take this convention, and next I'm going to import the Seaborn library, and here the convention is not mentioned, so whatever. And next I'm going to set the style of the Seaborn plotting library, and you will see the plots in a bit. Okay, so alright, we have future warning, whatever. Let me just check the version of the Pandas. Yep, we have 1.01. So this is the latest version at the time of this tutorial. Okay, so the first thing that I'm going to do in here, and probably the first thing that you will always need to do, is read the file. And in our case, this is a CSV file. So for that, I'm going to use pd.readCSV, and I'm going to pass in the path to the file, abnyc, and I'm just going to press Shift and Enter. And as you can see, something is happening. A lot of data is showing up. So I'm going to assign this. This is actually just a data frame. So I'm going to assign this information or this data to a data frame variable, like so. And once again, I can preview the data in here using df.head. And in here I can even specify the number of rows that I want to see. So let's say that I want to see only 3 rows. And as you can see, these are the 3 first rows in our dataset. And for our example, this dataset contains a lot of columns. We have the name, host ID, host name, neighborhood group. You can go to the Kaggle dataset and see even further what are every possible column in here. We have the name, host ID, host name, latitude, longitude, room type, price, everything that is related to some Airbnb listings in New York City. And of course, we have the number of reviews, the price per night, the amount of minimum nights that we should have. And Kaggle is nice enough to show us a rather nice preview of the data, which is quite similar to that of Pandas. So now that we've already loaded the data, the first thing that I usually do is just check the number of rows and columns that we have, and this is done using df.shape, and this is exactly the same as you will do in NumPy or PyTorch. So as you can see, we have almost 50k rows. So the first number is the amount of rows, and we have 16 columns in this one. Okay, so now that we have the data loaded, probably the first thing that you want to do after that, and after seeing roughly the dimensions and getting a preview of the data, is to check for missing values. And you can do that really easy using Pandas. You're just going to call the isNo method and then sum the result. And as you can see, we have some missing data in the name column, the host name column, the last review date, and the reviews per month. But otherwise, the dataset is quite filled. Okay, so there are a lot of ways to handle missing data, but let's be real. When you're prototyping something, the easiest thing you can do is just to discard all the rows that contain even one missing value. This is a really easy thing to do again in Pandas, and this is done using df drop na, and this will basically remove all the rows with missing values. And I'm going to assign this to the df variable, and again I'm going to check if we have missing values after this is complete. Okay, so everything looks perfect. We only have now, let's check the shape again. We've roughly got rid of 10k of our examples, but at least now we have only non-missing values. Okay, the next thing that you might want to do is to check the types of each column, the data type of each column, and the last review. If you go again to the preview, the last review in here is just a date, but when you loaded the data with Pandas, now it says it's an object. One very good thing you can do in this situation is convert this column to a date time, because from that you can extract probably the year, the month, day of the week, and you can do some other analysis based on the date. So to do that, I'm going to basically convert the last review column, and this is the way that I'm overwriting the last review column, and I'm going to call pd.toDateTime, and this will automatically convert the last review column to a type of datetime. And if I check the date types. In here you can see that we have another date type, which is the datetime. So this is great. Now you have regular date times in here, and you can do some date or time calculations based on this column. So one of the most important things you can do as well is to check the name of the columns, and this is done really easily using df.columns. So this will just return a list of all columns in the data frame. So the next thing that we are going to do is to basically get rid of some of the data, because let's say that we're doing some analysis of the price or the room types, and most of this data is not needed to us. So let's just delete some of the columns, and this can be done using, again, pandas, and the method that you're looking for is drop. And in here, the first parameter that I'm going to specify are the column names that we want to drop, and I'll drop the ID, the name, the host ID, the host name, the neighborhood, latitude, and longitude. Let me just reformat this for you guys. And the next parameter is going to be axis equals to 1. So this will make sure that the dropping is done on the columns rather than the rows. I made a typo. Okay, and if I check using df.head again, you should see that most of the columns or all of the columns that we've specified in here are now gone from our data frame. Okay, so let's have a look at selecting some of the columns. Let's say that you want to select a single column, and you can do that using df.name of the columns, so for example df type, and you can basically do all the operations that we've already seen. I can see get a preview of the first couple of rows of this column only, or I can select a subset of all the columns and create a new data frame using only those columns. So this will be an alternative to the drop method that we've seen already. And let's say that I'm going to select the room type, the price, the number of reviews, and reviews per month. And I'm going to see the result as well. Okay, so we have only those 4 rows now. And the next thing that I'm going to do is to get all of the possible room types that we have. And you can do this using .unique. So the name of the column, .unique. And we have only 3 possible types of rooms: private room, entire home or apartment, or a shared room. So the next thing that I'm going to do is to actually rename the price, because the price is a bit ambiguous in here, and I'm going to rename this to price per night, because some of the Kaggle discussions said that this is actually a price per night. So to do that, I'm going to create a new data frame based on the renaming of the columns. Of course, the method is called rename, and in here I'm going to specify the price column, and I'm going to rename this to price per night. Okay, let's see the data frame again, and now this column is price per night. Okay, so this is pretty basic, as you can tell, but most of the time, like 80 or 90% of the time in my actual work, I'm doing most of those operations. So the basics are going to give you a lot of power to do some data wrangling with pandas. One of the next thing that I want to show you that is really useful again is to how you can change the column order. So let's say that I want to set the price per night to be the first column, and then I want to swap the number of reviews and the reviews per month. So to do that, I'm going to basically use a clever little trick. It's not a method, but I'm going to subset the columns, exactly the same columns, but I'm going to change their order. So this is a double array or a double array notation. And now the data frame should have a different permutation of the columns, as you can see. Okay, so something important that you might want to do is some sort of analysis based on the column values. And to do that, I'm going to basically estimate the revenue of this property by just calculating the number of reviews times the price per night. So I'm going to use Pandas to create a new column called estimated revenue, and I'm going to calculate this revenue by using the price per night column, and I'm going to multiply that by the number of reviews. Okay, so now that this is complete, I'm going to see the result in here. And as you can see, we have the new column estimated revenue. So this is great. Now let's say that I want to have a look at only the rows that contain the room type that is private. So I'm going to just select some rows based on a column value, and to do that I'm going to get the data frame, and in here I'm going to specify the room type, but I'm using df.room type, and the filtering is done by double equals sign, and I'm going to specify private room. I'm going to take the head of this without making a new data frame, and as you can see, we have private room in the first couple of rows, but if I want to check if all values are private room, I'm going to type in room type unique again, and as you can see, we have only the private room type in here. So one of the most important thing, or the most useful thing you can do with Pandas is to iterate over each row, and this is really easy. You just type a for each loop, and the first parameter in here is going to be the index, then is going to be the row, and you're going to call the iter rows method, and I'm going to print the room type of the first row, and I'm going to put a break because I don't want to iterate over everything. So as you can see, we're just printing the first row, but this method will make sure that it iterates over every row that you have in your data frame. Okay, so the last thing that I'm going to show you in this tutorial is going to be how you can use Pandas to do some plotting. And let's be clear about something. I've most only use Seaborn and Matplotlib for the visualization parts, but you can definitely use Pandas for some basic or even something not so basic plotting. But let's start by showing you something really simple, and I'm going to plot the estimated revenue in here. We're going to call plot, and we want a histogram of that. And I'm going to specify the figure size, which will be 10 by 6. Run this. And as you can see, we have this chart, which is the amount of revenue that we have on the X, and how often do we see this. So let's increase the resolution of this. Let's say that we have 100 bins. And yeah, as you can see, most of the pricing in here is gathered around here. And probably we have some outliers that are skewing our plot. And you can easily check this by, let's say, df.estimated revenue, where the revenue is more than, let's say, 2,100. And yeah, we have an apartment that has a price of 3K per month, and it has around 70 reviews. So this one has a high revenue, and another one in here. So basically those two data points are skewing our entire graph in this case, but you might not be able to tell this if you haven't done the plotting. So plotting is really important in here. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing for the number of reviews. And in here we don't have such a high skew of the data. I'm going to reduce the resolution of this one. Yeah, as you can see, most of the properties have like probably less than 10 reviews, and some of those have even more than 200. So this is a heavy tail distribution, or yeah, Pareto distribution. So yeah, the real world is really maybe not normal. And the next thing that I'm going to show you, or the final plot that I'm going to show you, is a bar plot. I'm going to plot all three possible room types and the number of room types that the properties have room type, and I'm going to invoke a method called value counts, and I'm going to show you the result of this one. This just tells you the number of values for each room type, but I want to plot this, and I'm going to call again plot.bar this time. So I'm going to plot a bar plot, and again I'm going to specify the figure size, so this is a bit larger and we can see it. And as you can see, we have the three room types. The shared room is not very well presented in our data set, which is quite understandable because shared rooms are really bad place to be in, I guess. And the private room and the entire home apartment have almost the same number of properties. So this is pretty much it. And you can use those basic tricks to do some Pandas data wrangling. Please share, subscribe, like, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye guys.